Hey everyone, it's Connor DC back again for my Friday live stream, and today I've got some really cool things which I want to share with you. So at the beginning of the week, we started looking into what's next for me and my progression in building this solution, and we was looking into the kind of idea of building up the kind of user side of things, where users can share and save articles, set their own categories that they want to follow. So kind of moving on from that, we kind of saw that it was quite a big solution to build. So we're going to kind of start off simple this week, and that's going to be by basically building a favourites section for our users, where the users will be able to go to the article that they want to favourite, hit a button, and then that'll save into a separate list, which will then in turn they'll be able to access that by going to that screen. So I explored a few different ways of actually kind of pulling this off, because you're not only looking at SharePoint list data to do this. You kind of it's kind of individually set to the individual user to be able to do this. So we couldn't actually manipulate anything that was in the columns of the SharePoint list. So the main thank you for noticing my shirt. So the main things that we were kind of looking at was being able to possibly use a separate SharePoint list to display a list of favourites, which proved quite difficult because the user itself, depending on how many users you'd have, there'd have to be like a SharePoint list for every individual user. So we kind of looked towards a second option, and that was using in-device storage, or on-device storage, where the Power App will obviously be displayed on the user's mobile phone or tablet in a specific way. And then we'd be using the in-device storage to kind of store the favorited articles. Again, it kind of proved a little bit challenging because there's a lot of kind of small niggly little bits which have to kind of connect together to kind of build out just that small part of the kind of solution for the Daily Digest. So that's basically what I'm going to go through today. Is I'm going to show you how I've kind of done my research to figure this out and to figure out the best method of doing it. I've had a bit of help from some of the team at Cloud 365 as well, so they've helped me kind of edge towards this kind of direction. So what I'm going to first do is I'm just going to share with you, if I can find it, this Microsoft Documents sheet just here, and this kind of opened up a new avenue of sharing and storing information within Power Apps, and this is by using what's called collections. Now, to kind of give you an idea of what collections are and how they're slightly different to a SharePoint list, collections are kind of like data tables. This is my understanding from somebody kind of coming into this from a fresh perspective. They're kind of like data tables, which allow you to store different elements of data within your Power App. And then with using that collection, we can then kind of do what we want with that data, whether we want to save it to our device, push it to a SharePoint list, and there's loads of other things that we can do with it. But the main principle is that we are using collections to do this. So if we actually think about what we want the favourites screen to kind of look like and how we want it to work. So the main thing that we need is obviously a way of displaying the articles that are in that favorited list. So as we did last week, we'll start looking at a gallery, but instead of connecting that to our articles list in SharePoint, we're going to connect that to a collection, which we're going to make in Power Apps, and then that way we can push and pull kind of data in and out of that collection accordingly, and that will be specific to the user, as we'll be able to save that kind of file or key on the user's device. Now I hope you're following along, because it's kind of gone over my head a few times. I've had to kind of really look into this, as it can get quite complex in areas. So hopefully that makes sense what I've explained. Hopefully it'll make more sense when I actually start demonstrating it to you. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up our Power App, which we kind of half created last week. I've tidied a few things up and just made it a little bit more colourful, just to kind of follow a little bit of the Collab 365 branding. But yeah, we're gonna look from here and then kind of build out this user favorite section on top of what we built. So we've explained collections. We've explained kind of in in-device storage, and we use in-device storage using one of two expressions. In fact, you do need to use both of them to actually retrieve any data, as well as kind of push it to your phone as well. So going back to the documentation quickly, if I just scroll down the left here. So on the left here, this is just a kind of list of popular expressions which you can use, and this is really handy. There's some really good examples of how to use stuff in here. So the main ones I've been looking at is, if I find it, which is save data. And you've also got load data. It does take you to the same page, so you only need to click on one of them. But reading through this basically explains the expressions that you need to use to store and save data. And obviously this is used in a different solution and different scenario to what I'm going to be building. But the actual principles of the expression are the same. It's just manipulating the kind of arguments that are inside the expression. So the main ones we're going to look at is the save data, and I'll explain to you in just a second what the parameters of this expression actually mean. And the other one is load data. Again, it uses the same expressions as well. And then finally we're going to look at collect, which is slightly different to the kind of in-device storage. The collect is going to be basically what we're going to use to basically build up our collection of favorited articles. So hopefully that's explained the kind of principles and the theory behind what we're going to be building. Hopefully, again, it'll make more sense when I start building it. So if I'm just going to head over to Power Apps. And we need to think about where we're going to start. So we've obviously got our 4 screens where we're able to view our articles in different sort and filter formats. And we've also got our screen which allows us to submit an article, which is where we kind of finished off last week. So moving on from that, we need to create a new screen. And the new screen that we're going to create is going to be called Favorites. And how we get to the favourite screen isn't really important at the moment. Again, it's just the kind of making sure that we get the functionality behind it correct before we can start making it look pretty and adding all of the kind of look and feel elements into it. So up here on the top left, we're just going to click on New Screen, and I'm just going to create a blank screen for this. I'm just going to come here and rename this, and I'm just going to call this Favourite Screen. And this is going to be the screen that we can go to when we want to go to our personal favourites. So we need a way to actually get to this screen. So I'm just going to go to the recent screen, or the popular screen. It doesn't really matter. We'll just use the recent for now. Just ignore this AAA. I think that was something I was just testing with last week. So we just need a way of getting to our favourite screen. Now, if you remember from last week, it's a very simple expression. It was using an expression called navigate, but first of all, before we do that, we just need to add a button, and we're just going to call this button favorites. We could maybe change this into an icon further down the line, but we're just going to add it up here for now, just so we've got an easy way of getting to the favorite screen. So clicking on the favorites, I can go to the advanced tab on the right, And as before, on select, which is whenever the button's pressed, we need to make it do something. And for this, we're going to do what we have done 3 times before, and that's use the navigate expression. Again, it auto completes, and we want to send this to the favorite screen, and we can close that off with a closed brackets. Just to test this, we can go to test here, favorites, and we can see it takes us to our blank favorite screen, which is perfect. One thing to point out before I do continue, as we're going to be using on-device storage, there's kind of something that you need to take into consideration before you do that, and that's going to be that the on-device storage only works when you are using your application on your mobile or tablet device. If you're using it in Power Apps Studio on your desktop, there is nowhere for local saves and cached data, if you like, to actually save. So you will end up being kind of thrown up with errors, maybe saying that it's got like nowhere to store data using the save data and load data expressions that we're about to use in a couple of minutes. But just going to point that out. That's why if you do get any errors regarding that, that would be the reason why. So I do actually have my phone loaded up on another screen, which we'll get to once we start debugging and testing things. So yeah, that's just how I'm working. I mean, there's probably other ways of doing it, but this is in my mind, this is the simplest solution. So if I just quickly go back to this screen here, so we know that our favorites button, if I just go back to our recent screen, we know that our favorites button takes us to that page. So that works as expected. So what we need to do is we need to create a way of displaying the data on this favorite screen. And as I said at the beginning of this session, we are going to use a gallery for that. So we've used galleries before. We know exactly how they work. So we can literally just click on this, or we can drag and drop it in. It doesn't really matter. And I'm just going to extend this down, bring this down. I'm going to start looking at the look and feel and bringing in the kind of headers for the app as well at a later point. So we just need to ignore that for now. What I'll also do is just give this a text label. I'm just going to call this favorites, just so we know exactly where we are. It just makes it a little bit more clear. And I'll just make that look a little bit nicer. We'll just change. Sorry about that. So yeah, all I did, just in case you missed that, I just realised that I muted my microphone by accident. I was meant to sort that out last week. What I did was I basically just went to my new screen that I created, which is my favourite screen, and I've just added a back button which allows me to go back to my articles list. Otherwise, once we get here, we're going to be stuck here forever until we close the app. So that's just a quick thing which I just did there, and I did that by using the icon, adding an icon, making it a back button, and then adding navigate to recent screen, as we did to get to the actual favourite screen in the first place. Just bear with me 2 seconds. So let's have a look at what we need to do next. So we have our gallery in here, but it's currently not set up to any sort of data source. So what we're going to do for this is we are going to create a new collection. Now, I've been testing and messing around with this all week. So I do have a kind of already a collection of collections, which I'm not going to use. I'm going to show you how I'm going to do it from scratch. So yeah, let's get on with that. So if I go to action at the top left, this is going to allow us to create a new collection. So if I go to the collect drop down here, you can see that I already have a list of collections. I've got collection 3, 2 and 1, which we're not going to use. I'm just going to click on the drop down where collection 3 is, and I'm going to add a new collection. I'm not sure why it's added a collection 1. I think it's because I previously deleted it. Let me see if I can get a collection 4. Okay, we'll go with collection 1. That should be perfect. So now we have a collection. We need to basically implement the collection into our data source. Now, once we do this, nothing's going to happen because there is no data in our collection. So these populated fields in our gallery here should just go blank. So if we add collection 1, so you can see that it's just got false and false, and that's because this collection has a field called pressed by default, which is either true or false, but we can change that. That can disappear, and we can do this by making sure that we're on the gallery. Go into the properties tab, and if we go to I'm just going to make sure that it's the kind of similar look and feel to what we have previously. So we're going to go image title and subtitle, which is our image title and category, if you remember from last week, and then we can go to edit here, and at the moment there isn't any information being populated into here, so we can't actually change anything just yet, but we'll get to that in just a second. So now we have a collection created. We need to think about our next step. So what is our next step? We need to basically allow ourselves to how do I explain this? So we need to allow ourselves to select specific articles in our articles list on our articles page. So if I just go to our recent screen, you can see we've got this plus icon here. This was a little right chevron, which basically when you click it would send you to the articles list, but we're going to move on to that at a later date, where you'll actually be able to select the kind of row as a whole, or the kind of, I'm not really sure what they call these, the kind of element as a whole, and that will take you to the article. So we're just going to make this plus icon our favorites, basically add it to our favorites. So how I got to the plus icon, if you select it, you'll see that we have here on the right hand side, we have icon, and perhaps gives you a bunch of icons and default icons that you can use to do this, whatever suits the need of your button, or whatever you're trying to accomplish. So I'm just going to use a plus icon. That makes sense to me. I mean, a heart icon would be kind of better sense, but they don't have it in here. And I think that could be something that we do at a later date, where we go and start styling the things exactly how we want them. But it's just, again, the principle and the functionality that we want to work with today. So I've got my plus icon, and I'm just going to point out here that when working with galleries, the top, or the kind of the first item in the list, is the one that you manipulate to affect all of the rest of the items. So you don't have to change the functionality or the look or styling of any of the other items, as long as you do it to the first one. So if I, even though there's no image on this first article here, if I extend this, you can see that everything else follows. If I move the titles to the top, everything else will follow. So that's just one thing to bear in mind. So you always have to, if you want to manipulate any of the styling or functionality in a gallery, it's always the first item that you need to manipulate. So with that said, we can select on our plus icon that's now not that chevron anymore, and we can go to advanced. And if we go to advanced, I'm just going to get rid of this for now, and I'm going to show you how we do this from scratch. So, as standard, there will be nothing set. I think by default it's set to parent, which would take you to the actual link of the item, which actually wasn't set up in the original first place, so we don't need to worry about that. But on select basically means that once this button is, or item or element in Power Apps is pressed or clicked on, then it will do something if you fill this in. So what do we want to put in here? So as I discussed at the beginning of this live stream, we have three kind of elements that we want to look at, and that is going to be, if I just go back to collect here on the left of this documentation, if I can find it. Actually no, it was under the save data one, sorry. So if I just scroll down, and we can see that we have this one here, which is collect. And what this is doing is it is going to collect or get or retrieve or even insert. I think collect's kind of the wrong word for this. From how I would perceive this, collect sounds like the kind of wrong word for it, but we're going to basically retrieve some information and insert that into a collection, and that's what the collect expression does. So there's some arguments inside of the brackets here that we need to consider. So the first, after putting collection, to do open brackets, and then the first thing that you need to put in there is going to be the where you are retrieving the information from. Now, if I go to my Power App here, we know that how we displayed this gallery here, gallery 2, was using the articles list in SharePoint over here. So we know that this is how this screen is how Power Apps is populating that gallery. So with that said, let me just figure out where we was. We know that the articles list is going to be where we're going to retrieve information from. So if we just go back to our documentation, so that is basically what this first argument or parameter of this expression means. The second parameter is going to be, so we've got our source of the data that we want to add to our collection, but we need to know exactly what in that source we would like to collect. Now, Power Apps has a really cool feature or built-in expression literally called this item, and from when I was learning a little bit of C++ last year, it's very similar to kind of saying like self or get self, or the kind of owner of whatever you're trying to achieve. Like, it's very hard to explain, but basically means that it's get access to its own self, or the parent, or who it belongs to. Just bear with me 2 seconds. So now we've got that kind of understanding of the expression kind of in place, we can then think about how we want to utilize it in our solution. So again, if I just select the plus icon, we need to fill out something in this action. So we know that the first thing, the first expression that we want to put in here is collect. Again, it will try to autocomplete, so we can just click on that. on collect, and it starts us off with an open bracket, and it tells us that we need to put in a new or existing collection to augment. So in here we need to put where we are retrieving the data from, and that's going to be our articles list, which is this list here that we actually have in our screen. So we can select articles list, and we can add a comma, and it's going to ask us for the item in that articles list that we want to add to our collection. And this is literally as simple as doing this item. You can do things more specifically, whether it was you wanted to save, for example, an image from the article. You can go ahead and select the image. You can basically get any information from that SharePoint list that we created to retrieve. But this item as a singular will actually just retrieve all of the information that's available in that SharePoint list, and it will save it into that collection. So we can select this item, and we can do a close brackets. So what have we got here? So our plus icon now is going to grab the item, or this item, no matter which one we do, whether it's the building my first power platform. If we select this, it will grab this item, and it's going to save it into a collection. Now at the moment that collection is just saved as a collection, or it's not even saved, should I say. It is just a collection of data, and it's what we do with it next which is the really fun part, and where it gets quite interesting. So as said at the beginning of the video of the stream, we need to basically save this to our device. Now again, this might kick up some errors, but I'll show you the best I can how to achieve this. So we're going to use a semicolon at the end of our first expression, and this allows us to basically add another expression after it, and it'll do those in order. So we've added our semicolon. I'm just going to put a space, it's kind of just good practice, and we need to basically do the second step of our saving our favourites items. So we know that we want to save this to our phone or our device. So if we go to the documents again, and if I just scroll down, you can see that we have this save data, my items, and then local saved items. So just to give you a quick rundown of what this expression is, what it means, and how you can use it. Save data is basically a expression that gets triggered, or can be triggered on your device. It can't be triggered in a Teams version of your Power Apps, and again it can't be triggered in the Power App Studio when you're testing, which makes it a little bit more difficult, but it's a great solution, and I'll show you how we can do that. So we use save data, and the next line that it asks for is going to be the basically the collection or the data source where you want to store from the items. So we know that if we quickly go back to our first part here, we know that we wanted to collect the article from the articles list, but we want to save it in a collection, and that's where our favourites screen comes into play, where we've set that the gallery up to be connected with our favourites collection that we made. So in here, if we move on, we've got our last section, which is basically just it's kind of like a file name, but they call it a key, which is basically a unique kind of identifier as to what file it would need to pull or push to should you be saving the data or loading the data. That'll make more sense as we get on to the third part in just a second. So with that said, we can kind of use this expression, and we know that we need to add a save data, and we can click the autofill here, and it's going to ask us for a kind of source where we want to save our data. And we know that we used collection 1, I believe it was, and we can check this just by going to our favorite screen, selecting our gallery, and looking at the properties, and we can see that the data source is collection 1. So we know that that's correct. So if I just go back to the recent screen, click on the plus icon, go to advanced, we can fill out this one to be collection 1. So this is going to save the data that we have collected into our collection 1 collection. So we now need to give our collection file that we save a name where we can then push to and pull from as and when it's needed. So to do this, we're just going to add a comma, and it's going to ask us for a name. So as you can see, it kind of explains it here. The name of a data file in local storage where data will be saved. Simple as that. So to do this, I'm just going to put this in brackets, not brackets, sorry, in double quotations, and I'm going to call this one my favorites. And we can close it off with double quotations and close brackets. So, assuming I have set this up correctly, this will now collect our articles from our articles list that we, the specific item, as we have this item here. So the specific item from our articles list that we click on this button for, and it will save that article into a collection which is accessible on our device using the file name of my favorites, which is exactly what we want. So with that said, we now need to think about how we are going to load this data. So at the moment, all it's doing is pushing the data to our in-device storage, and it's not pulling it from anywhere, so we can't actually populate our gallery without using the load data function. So to do a load data function, you've got to think about where the best place to put it is. So I was thinking about this long and hard. I did a bit of experimenting to kind of see what works best. And what does work best is to have the load data expression being pulled whenever the gallery is visible. Trying to put that into kind of context, you wouldn't want your device to be using its resources, pulling and pushing data when it doesn't actually need to view it. So the best place to put this is going to be on our favorite screen. So we can leave that plus icon as it is now, as that is set up how we want it. We'll test that eventually, but to test it we do need to do this load data part. So let's have a look. If I go to my favorites and then go to my gallery, I can see that we've got a collection. If I edit this now, let me just see. So let me just figure out exactly what we needed here. So what we need to do is on the favorite screen itself, when this is visible, we are going to select on the left here. This is just a list of kind of parameters which we can set up functions for by default, and there's a few here which we can do. There's like whether it's on hidden, the width of it, to fill the background image, but we're going to do this on visible. So we're going to call something to happen, or an action to happen, when the screen is visible. And as standard, it's kind of populated something which we don't want, so we're just going to get rid of that. And you can see that now it doesn't know what to populate this with. So what we need to do is we need to call our load data function. So if I just go back to the documentation and I scroll down, it's exactly the same as the saved data, but instead we're just using load data as the prefix here, which is basically going to do exactly the same thing, but it's going to pull the data that we pushed in there instead of pushing it which we did with save data. I hope that makes sense. So let's start off with load data. And again, it's going to ask us for our collection name. So we want to load the data from our collection. Now let me figure out exactly what the name of our collection was. I'm not sure that's going to appear. Let me just check that we have that in here. It might already be because I was using collection 1 when I was testing, but let me just figure this out. See if I can create a new collection a second. Right, just bear with me. So favorite screen. So add it to collections 1, which is exactly what we want. I'm just going to file and save this and then publish, just to see if this has anything to do with it. I didn't experience this error before, but basically what's happening is my collection's not showing under my function. So it's almost like it can't find it. So favorite screen on visible. I don't have any collections. So let me just have a look at my Power Apps dashboard a second. It should just sign me in a second. And let's have a look. Bear with me 2 seconds. So I think it's something to do with the actual data. So let me just check this a second. Okay, so it can't find, it doesn't seem to want to find my collection, so I'm assuming if I just test this in my application, let me just see what sort of errors we get in here. Let me just see where I went wrong. So let me just test this a second. Just to make sure I'm on the right one. So. Okay, so I seem to be experiencing a little bit of a bug or an issue as to why I can't see my collection. So if you guys have got to just bear with me while I figure this out. So okay, let me just try and add a new collection. And see if this works. So let me try now. Okay, so for some reason the previous collection got removed. So now I have to just basically create a new collection, and now it seems to be appearing again. So we'll just select collection 1 in here. And we will do a comma, and again we call this my favorites. So this is the file that it will be pulling from your device, and then we'll just close it off as usual. So when this screen is visible, it will do that load data function, and then what we can do in here is we can go to the actual gallery. We can select fields here, and we can change what we want the fields to appear as. So we know the first one we want to select as the image URL, which we know changes that into a image. The second one seems to be the bottom one, which was our category, and the top one was our title. So we now know that this should, if working correctly, allow us to visually see what items we have saved to our device using the load data and save data functions in Power Apps. So just before I save this, I'm just going to check that the first part hasn't broken, as I had to create that new collection. So we can see it actually has, so we need that save data back in there as well. So we will do save data, collection 1, and then it was going to be called my favorites, and that needed to be in double quotations. Okay, so with that done, we can do file, save, and we can publish this version, and we can see if this works over on our mobile device. Now for this I'm going to be using Samsung DeX. I do have a Samsung phone. It's the easiest way that I can kind of share with you what I'm seeing on my phone. So if I just bear with me 2 seconds, if I just head over to my mobile view, so this is essentially a desktop version of my mobile, where I have the Power Apps app installed. So if I select this, and it's going to load up Power Apps, and it's got a list of my Power Apps here. Yours might look slightly different to this because it'll be more in a portrait format. But yeah, we'll kind of go with this. So we know that the application we call is called Daily Digest application. So I'm going to load this. It's probably going to ask me if I want to update it because we've just published a new version. Yep, at the top here we can see a new version of your app is available. Tap to update now. All we have to do is just click that, send us back here. It's a very small application at the moment, so that hasn't taken very long at all. And we can load back into this now. So we can see that our app is sending us to our articles list, where we are able to scroll. You'd be able to do that with your finger if you was using an actual physical device. But this is kind of just emulating my phone for now. So if we go to our favorites, so we can see that we got an error that happened here called Power Apps didn't find that file. Please confirm the file name. There was a problem loading your data. and this is an error that you should only see once, but it's an error that we can actually remove for now. I'm just going to see if I can turn on aeroplane mode. I don't want to receive any notifications. Actually, I just realised we need this to connect to our list, so let's turn that back off, shall we? So we know that basically what's happening and why we got that error was because there was no load file to actually load from when we went to this screen, and to do that there needs to be a save file for it to pull from. So Paraps has obviously thought about this, and they have implemented a very small add-on which you can add to the end. Now if I can just find it, it was under the collect, I believe, if I scroll up. Sorry, no it wasn't, it's under the load data, and it was basically using this ignore non-existent file. So by default we can see this is false by default, and if it's set to true it will suppress the error that we receive. So we need to add this to our Power App. But before we get there, let's just check to make sure that this actually works. So if I just click the plus icon here, there's no real kind of visual feedback at the moment. I might change that to a tick eventually, but there's no visual feedback. But I have clicked it. This should, all being well, appear now in our favourites, which it does. It's appeared twice. I'm not sure why it's appeared twice. Again, it'll be something that we have to debug at a later date. But we can go back and I can add, let's say I wanted to add this one here, go to my favourites, and it's added it twice. So I need to figure out exactly what's causing that. But that's basically the kind of start as to what's happening. So we know that our plus icon is adding our article to a collection, saving it to the device, and when we click on favourites, this screen becomes visible and it's loading. So we know that the load data is probably what's causing this. Having the load data on visible basically means that it's going to load this data every time this screen is visible. So probably not the best place to put the load data, but it's something we can look at a later point. So having load data expression actually triggering every time we load the favourites isn't ideal. So we could probably do this on, I think the best time to do it would probably be when you load the app. So if I just head back to the screen just here, this is what we need to add for a start, because we have no file which we want to use. So we're going to use ignore non-existent file, and this is boolean, which is either true or false. So we're just going to set this to true, and you can see that the syntax that we need to use here is just a comma with our true or false statement at the end. So I'm just going to go back to here. I'm going to go to my favorite screen, and I'm just going to add a comma here, and you can see that it's ignore non-existent file, and we can literally just type in true, and that should avoid that issue happening whenever somebody else new to the application loads the app. So let's just quickly take a look at where we want to put this. So having this on visible on the favorite screen isn't ideal, so we can copy this. I'm just going to Control C, and if I scroll right to the top, we've got app, and we can set the kind of the defaults for this app when it loads. So we can put that in here. So when the app loads, we want to load data. We want to load the collection one called my favorites, and we also want to make sure that we navigate to the screen that we want to. So I'm just going to add a semicolon and add navigate, and I'm just going to make sure that the first screen that opens is our recent screen, and then close that off there. So let's have a look back at our favorite screen. We can remove this now from here. And that should now be working as we expected it to. So what I can do is I'm just going to close all of my apps on my device, and we're going to start again and test this. So if I just do File, Save, and then we publish again, publish this version, and then we head over to our mobile, we can load up Power Apps. Again, it's going to ask us to update our application. It should do in just a second. There we go. So new tap to update. We'll do that as we did before. Reload our application. And we should, if we go to favorites, assuming that this is saved on local storage, because I'm using Samsung Deck, so I'm not sure if it will, we shouldn't now get any more extras as we come in here. So yeah, it's loading the originals that we had, but it's not loading those extra ones when we click in favorites now, which is ideal. So it loads them on the app start, which is perfect. So say for example I wanted to add why I'm choosing to learn Power Platform. If I click on this, on the plus icon, we head to favorites, and we can see that that has appeared in here, which is perfect. So that has covered basically everything that we need to do to kind of add our favorites. We're going to be looking at more kind of removing favorites as well, as that gets a little bit more. We look into a few more expressions, such as I believe what we're going to be looking at is something called clear data. So if I go to the collect, clear collect. So this is what we've been working with today. We have this clear collect and clear, which we should be able to remove specific items from our listing as well. So hopefully that's kind of covered some real kind of, I wouldn't say advanced, it's taken me a while to kind of figure out how to do it, because you really kind of need to think about the end solution before you really build this. But hopefully that's kind of given you a good look into adding articles. I mean, at the moment we can obviously add 3 of these if we wanted to, and they're going to appear in here. So we need to kind of look at a few more functions and expressions to kind of make sure that we're filtering out things that are maybe already in there. But it's kind of like a stepping stone as to where we're heading kind of with this application. Again, we're going to make this look a lot nicer, have a proper favorites tab, maybe in a little hamburger menu or something. But yeah, that's something that we're going to look at further down the line. I hope, this has helped the best as I can to help you guys understand where this kind of live stream has gone. I know it's been a little bit confusing. Don't forget you can leave comments on this video if you're watching it on demand on YouTube after the live stream is finished. I'll do my best to answer any of them. If you've got any suggestions, things I may be possibly doing wrong, or better kind of best practices that you think I should be using more so than what I've done today, I'd like to hear from you guys as well. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. I'm going to be streaming every Friday at 3 PM, as I've done for the last month now. This is my 4th stream. So you guys can hopefully keep up to date and kind of follow me along this learning journey of learning the Power Platform and building out this solution. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the stream, and I will see you hopefully next Friday at 3 PM. See you later.